My name is Sarah, and I want to share my story about a family vacation with my mother, my stepdad, and my stepbrother because it was my first real experience traveling with my new blended family. And I remember the mix of excitement and nervousness I felt as we packed our bags because I knew this trip would test our ability to communicate, cooperate, and enjoy time together. And as I organized my suitcase, carefully checking clothes, toiletries, and travel essentials, I practiced using English to describe what I was bringing, saying things like, I'm bringing my swimsuit, sunscreen, and a hat for the beach, and my stepbrother responded, don't forget your flip-flops and a towel. And even these small exchanges became opportunities to practice vocabulary for packing, planning, and making polite suggestions. And when we loaded our luggage into the car, I realized how different traveling with a stepbrother could be because we had to coordinate space, share responsibilities, and figure out who would carry what. And while it felt awkward at first, I learned to ask politely, negotiate turns, and communicate clearly, saying things like, can you help me lift this bag? Or do you mind if I put this in the trunk first? And these phrases became natural practice in real life communication. And as we drove to our destination, I also practiced asking for directions using phrases like, excuse me, could you tell us the way to the hotel? Or is this the right exit for the beach? And I learned to interpret responses, clarify instructions, and describe locations, which improved both my listening and speaking skills. And when we encountered a wrong turn or a confusing road sign, I stayed calm, repeating phrases like, let's check the map again, or I think we missed the exit. Can we turn back safely? And my stepdad and stepbrother participated actively, offering opinions and solutions, which created a collaborative learning environment. And during the drive, we talked about what we wanted to do on vacation, sharing preferences about sightseeing, food, and activities, and I practiced expressing opinions. Like, I really want to visit the aquarium first because I love marine animals. And my stepbrother replied, I'd prefer the amusement park. It looks more exciting. And we negotiated our itinerary using polite language, compromise, and descriptive words. And I learned how to say things like, how about we spend the morning at the aquarium and the afternoon at the park? Or we can try both activities if we start early, which allowed us to plan efficiently and practice conversational English naturally. And when we arrived at the hotel, I described my surroundings aloud, saying, the lobby is spacious, and the walls are decorated with paintings of local landscapes, and my stepbrother and I compared observations, noticing details like the color of the curtains, the furniture arrangement, and the view from the windows, which enriched our descriptive vocabulary and gave us shared experiences to discuss and enjoy. And as we settled into our rooms, I practiced polite communication about responsibilities and preferences, saying things like, can we keep the bathroom tidy? Or do you mind if I unpack my suitcase on this side? And my stepbrother responded positively, which reinforced teamwork and respectful interaction. And during meals, I described the food, saying, this pasta is creamy, and the sauce has a hint of garlic and basil, and asked for recommendations like, which dessert do you recommend? And by participating actively in ordering, complimenting, and discussing meals, I practiced conversational phrases, adjectives, and expressions for taste, texture, and preference. And when we encountered challenges, like a delayed tour bus or a long line at a museum, I use language to express patience and propose solutions, saying, maybe we can explore the nearby park while we wait, or shall we grab a snack first? And my stepbrother and stepdad joined in, offering suggestions which allowed me to practice agreeing, disagreeing politely, and negotiating alternatives. And during activities like hiking, swimming, or sightseeing, I described experiences aloud, saying things like, the waterfall is so tall, and the water looks crystal clear, or I love how the sunlight reflects off the lake. And I practiced comparing experiences, expressing excitement, and giving my opinions clearly. And my stepbrother added his observations, which allowed us to have conversations that were rich, engaging, and language focused. And through these experiences, I naturally expanded vocabulary related to travel, directions, sightseeing, nature, food, preferences, and leisure activities. And I also practiced using expressions for emotions, like I'm thrilled to see this view, or I feel a little tired after the hike, which helped me articulate feelings in English confidently. And we also navigated small conflicts or differences in preferences using polite negotiation, saying things like, I know you want to go to the amusement park, but can we visit the museum first and then the park? Or, I understand you're hungry, let's decide on a restaurant we all like. And I noticed that expressing opinions clearly, compromising, and listening actively strengthened both our relationship and my conversational English. And during downtime in the hotel room or on the beach, I narrated experiences, told stories about our day, and reflected on adventures using past tense phrases, descriptive adjectives, and sequencing words, saying things like, first, we walked along the pier, then we tried kayaking, and finally, we watched the sunset, and my stepbrother joined in, giving his perspective, which allowed me to practice conversational turn-taking, listening, and responding appropriately. And every conversation about plans, preferences, and experiences was an opportunity to reinforce vocabulary. Practice question forms, use comparative and superlative adjectives, and describe situations vividly. And I also noticed improvements in my ability to ask for clarification, repeat sentences politely, and rephrase when needed, saying things like, can you explain that again? Or, I'm not sure I understood, could you show me? Or, do you mean we should take the left path? Which are all essential skills for effective English communication. And through the challenges of traveling with a blended family, including coordinating schedules, handling luggage, adjusting to different routines, and negotiating activities, I realized that I was gaining practical fluency, confidence, and social skills simultaneously. And by expressing preferences, describing experiences, asking questions, narrating events, and negotiating politely, I was practicing English in the most natural, immersive, and effective way, while also improving teamwork, emotional intelligence, and relationship building skills. And as we ended each day, I reflected on what I had learned, repeating key phrases, describing highlights, and preparing for the next day's adventures. And this continual self-talk, reflection, and verbal practice strengthened my English comprehension, fluency, and confidence, showing me that travel, shared experiences, and meaningful interactions are among the best ways to develop communication skills. And by the end of the vacation, not only had we built a stronger bond as a family, but I had also internalized a wealth of vocabulary, conversational structures, and practical phrases for real life travel scenarios, including asking for directions, describing places, expressing opinions, negotiating activities, and narrating experiences confidently. And this journey reinforced that authentic practice, reflection, and engagement are the keys to both language growth and meaningful relationships. Because every interaction, observation, and discussion is a learning opportunity, and by embracing challenges, actively participating, and communicating openly, anyone can enhance English fluency while building strong connections with family or peers. And this vacation became a perfect example of how immersion, self-expression, and consistent practice combine to transform confidence, vocabulary, comprehension, and interpersonal skills in a natural, engaging, and enjoyable way. As our vacation continued, I realized that exploring new places with my mother, stepdad, and stepbrother was not just about having fun, it was an incredible opportunity to practice English, describe experiences, and express preferences in real situations. And I remember the first morning we visited a famous city landmark, and I was filled with excitement and a little nervousness because I wanted to explain everything clearly to my stepbrother and share my observations with my family. And as we approached the entrance, I described the building aloud, saying, "Look at how tall the towers are, and the architecture has so many intricate details." And my stepbrother added, "I love the colors on the facade. It looks vibrant in the sunlight." And through this exchange, we naturally practiced descriptive vocabulary, adjectives and expressions for location, size, and visual features. And as we walked inside, I pointed out statues, paintings, and exhibits, saying things like, "This sculpture is made of bronze and has a very smooth finish," or "The painting depicts a historical scene with bright, vivid colors," and my stepbrother contributed his thoughts, asking questions like, "Why do you think the artist chose this color?" Or, "What do you notice about the patterns here?" Which encouraged me to formulate sentences, explain reasoning, and answer questions in English. And even small interactions with tour guides became valuable practice, because I asked questions like, "Can you tell us more about the history of this building?" Or, "Where is the nearest restroom?" And I had to listen carefully, respond politely, and sometimes repeat or paraphrase information to ensure I understood correctly. And as we continued the day, I described my feelings, saying, "I feel amazed by this view. It's breathtaking," or "I'm a little tired, but this experience is worth it." And using these emotional expressions helped me articulate thoughts clearly while expanding vocabulary related to emotions, sensations, and experiences. And my stepbrother also shared his feelings, allowing for natural dialogue practice and conversational turn-taking. And during lunch at a local cafe, I ordered food in English, describing preferences like, "I would like the grilled chicken sandwich without onions, please, and can I have a glass of water?" And I complimented the meal, saying, "The salad is fresh, and the dressing is perfectly balanced." And I asked my family for recommendations, saying, "Which dish do you think I should try next?" And these casual interactions reinforced polite requests, descriptive phrases, and conversational confidence. And we also explored outdoor markets, where I described stalls, colors, and products, saying, "These handmade scarves are so colorful and soft," or, "I love the smell of fresh spices here," and my stepbrother practiced similar descriptions, allowing us to exchange observations and opinions, which encourage comparative language, adjectives, and expressing preferences. And when we face challenges like navigating crowded streets or finding the right direction to a museum, I practice asking for directions and clarifying information, saying, "Excuse me, could you tell us the way to the nearest subway station?" Or, "Is this street leading to the market?" And I repeated instructions, paraphrased, and confirmed understanding by saying, "So we need to turn left at the corner and then walk straight for 2 blocks, right?" Which improved my listening comprehension and practical conversational skills. And during sightseeing tours, I narrated the day using sequencing words like, "First, we visited the old cathedral, then we walked along the riverside, and finally we went to the observation deck to watch the sunset." And my stepbrother added his own narrative, which helped me practice storytelling, past tense, and chronological expressions. And we also compared experiences using phrases like, "I think the museum exhibit was more interesting than the historical park," or "I enjoyed the boat ride more than the walking tour," which encouraged expressing opinions clearly and politely. And during evening walks on the beach or around the city, I practiced describing sensations, saying, "The sand feels soft under my feet," or "The waves are gentle," and "The breeze is refreshing." And I also asked my stepbrother questions like, "Do you like the sunset more from this side of the beach or the pier?" And listened attentively to his answers, responding with phrases like, "I see, I like your perspective. It's different but interesting," which fostered natural conversational flow, active listening, and empathy. And throughout these activities, I noticed that I was constantly expanding travel vocabulary, using words and expressions for directions, locations, transportation, food, weather, emotions, and preferences, and practicing complete sentences in realistic, meaningful contexts. And when planning the next day's activities, I described my preferences aloud, saying, "Tomorrow I would like to visit the botanical gardens in the morning and the science museum in the afternoon." And my stepbrother shared his suggestions, and we negotiated a schedule together using phrases like, "We can start with the gardens and then go to the museum if we leave early," or "How about we split the day so everyone gets to do what they enjoy?" And by negotiating politely, explaining reasoning, and responding appropriately, I practiced conflict resolution, compromise, and conversational fluency, and these skills naturally transferred to other contexts, like school projects, social interactions, and future collaborative situations, because the ability to communicate clearly, listen actively, and resolve differences is essential in every scenario. And during cultural experiences like visiting local festivals, performances, or historical landmarks, I described my observations, asked questions about traditions, and shared opinions, saying things like, "I love the music and dance. The costumes are so vibrant and detailed," or "The historical reenactment was very engaging and informative." And my stepbrother also expressed his thoughts, which encouraged dialogue, vocabulary practice, and exchanging ideas. And when we took photos or wrote travel notes, I described scenes using phrases like, "The fountain in the square is majestic," and "The surrounding buildings reflect the afternoon sunlight beautifully." And these narrative exercises reinforce descriptive language, sequencing, and clarity in English, and when minor conflicts arose, like deciding which activity to do first or how to divide responsibilities. I practiced expressing my opinion respectfully, suggesting alternatives, and negotiating compromises using phrases like, I see your point, but maybe we could try this option first, or shall we alternate choices so everyone is happy? And I noticed that these conflict resolution interactions not only strengthened our relationship, but also improved my English fluency, confidence, and social skills because I learned to express ideas politely, listen actively, and respond thoughtfully. And by the end of the trip, I could describe experiences vividly, narrate events fluently, ask and answer questions confidently, express preferences and emotions naturally, negotiate effectively, and interact socially with ease. And this vacation became a rich, immersive English learning environment because every conversation, observation, challenge, and shared activity was an opportunity to practice language meaningfully, while also building a stronger bond with my stepbrother. And I realized that travel, shared experiences, and consistent engagement are among the most effective ways to develop both practical English skills and personal confidence. And the lessons I learned describing experiences, asking for directions, expressing opinions, negotiating plans, and narrating events will continue to guide me in all future interactions, whether at school, with friends, or in professional settings. And this trip showed me that immersive, interactive, and real-life practice is the key to mastering English and enjoying meaningful, collaborative experiences with others. And that even in a blended family, patience, empathy, communication, and practice can transform challenges into growth, learning, and lasting connections. As our vacation came to an end, I sat on the hotel balcony watching the sunset and reflecting on everything I had experienced. And I realized that this trip had been far more than sightseeing or fun activities. It had been an incredible journey of learning, communication, and personal growth. Because through navigating challenges, exploring new places, and spending meaningful time with my mother, stepdad, and stepbrother, I had practiced expressing opinions, describing experiences, asking for directions, negotiating plans, and narrating events naturally in English. And I could clearly see how much my confidence and fluency had improved over the days, because I had been immersed in real-life situations that required me to speak, listen, clarify, explain, and respond appropriately. And I noticed that I could now articulate thoughts and emotions more accurately, using phrases like I felt amazed when we reached the observation deck because the view was breathtaking, or I enjoyed the guided tour because it gave me a deeper understanding of the city's history, or I prefer the botanical garden in the morning because it's cooler and less crowded. And I could even compare experiences effectively, saying things like the science museum was more engaging than the art gallery because it had interactive exhibits. Or I liked the beach more than the park because I loved the sound of waves and the fresh air, and these descriptive, comparative, and opinion-based expressions allowed me to practice advanced vocabulary, sequencing, and sentence structure while reflecting authentically on my experiences. And I also recognized that managing small conflicts or differences in preferences during the trip, like deciding which activity to do first or how to split responsibilities, had strengthened my ability to communicate politely and negotiate effectively. because they practice phrases like, I understand your perspective, but could we consider an alternative? Or maybe we can compromise so that everyone is happy. And these interactions reinforce both relationship building and conversational fluency. And I also practice storytelling and narration in English by recounting daily adventures to my mother and stepdad, saying things like, today we visited the local market and I noticed colorful fabrics, fresh produce, and unique handicrafts. And my stepbrother tried bargaining for souvenirs, which was fun to watch, and I could explain sequences, cause and effect, and personal reactions in detail, which helped consolidate grammar, vocabulary, and speaking confidence. And as we discussed highlights of the trip, shared favorite moments, and compared what we enjoyed most, I practiced expressing preferences, emotions, and reasoning, saying things like, I loved kayaking because it was exciting and challenging, and I felt proud when I paddled successfully, or I enjoyed the cultural festival because the music and dance were so vibrant, and I could listen and respond thoughtfully to my stepbrother's reflections, which encouraged turn-taking, active listening, and collaborative conversation, and in quieter moments, I wrote travel notes and reflections in English, describing the scenery, meals, activities, and feelings using vivid adjectives, adverbs, and descriptive phrases. And this not only reinforced vocabulary and writing skills, but also improved clarity of expression and thought organization. And I noticed that by narrating experiences aloud, listening to my stepbrother's perspective, and summarizing our adventures, I was practicing complex sentence structures, sequencing, and storytelling, which are essential for higher level English fluency. And reflecting on the trip as a whole, I realized that immersive, meaningful interaction with family in real-life contexts is one of the most effective ways to practice language naturally. Because every conversation, observation, negotiation, and description became a learning opportunity, and I could see the cumulative effect of daily practice, self-expression, active listening, and collaborative decision-making on my confidence, vocabulary, and fluency. And I also recognized the emotional growth that occurred, because navigating a blended family vacation required patience, empathy, and understanding, and I learned to appreciate different preferences, respect opinions, negotiate politely, and celebrate shared successes, which improved both my interpersonal skills and my ability to communicate effectively in English. And as I looked back on the entire journey, I felt a deep sense of achievement, knowing that I had grown linguistically, socially, and emotionally, and that the experiences, conversations, and reflections during this vacation had provided a foundation for continued growth. Because the skills I practiced describing experiences, expressing opinions, narrating events, asking and answering questions, negotiating, resolving minor conflicts, and collaborating are transferable to school, friendships, and future travel. And I also realized that immersive, self-directed, and meaningful engagement is far more effective than memorization or artificial exercises, because speaking, listening, and expressing ideas in authentic contexts solidifies learning, builds confidence, and allows vocabulary, grammar, and communication skills to flourish naturally. And this experience reinforced a crucial lesson that language growth, personal development, and family bonding can happen simultaneously, and by approaching challenges with patience, openness, and active participation, anyone can improve English fluency, navigate social interactions gracefully, and deepen relationships meaningfully. And I hope that sharing my story as Sarah encouraged viewers to embrace travel, shared experiences, and reflective practice. Because every conversation, every observation, and every decision is an opportunity to practice language, build confidence, and grow personally, socially, and emotionally, and the memories, vocabulary, and skills I gained from this vacation will stay with me forever, shaping how I communicate, collaborate, and connect in every area of life. And this journey showed me that learning English is not just about studying, it's about living, engaging and experiencing the world fully, while expressing thoughts, emotions, and ideas clearly and confidently.